You think we're up against a monster. Ah, science fiction stuff.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks again for any subscribers, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider it because it does help the channel. And please comment below on the choices I make and anything else that you would pick yourself. This is a tag video. So this is a tag video that was created by Brad Proctor, and it's all based around Stranger Things. And I love that show. You might see, I'll link it in the description and at the end of the video. I did a 10 things I love about Stranger Things video. I'm a massive fan of Stranger Things. But before I put that up, Crystal from Fiber Artsy actually tagged me in this, so that's really cool. So yeah, I've been looking forward to doing this one. It's great to read the prompts for a start, because the prompts are all related to the show and they're really good prompts. But I did struggle with a couple of them, but I have got answers now, so I'm going to do it now. So I'm going to crack on straight away with the prompts. So the first prompt is upside down, an alternate dimension that exists in parallel to your own, inhabited by deadly predators. Name a world you would not want to get stuck in. Okay, so I think that question is supposed to prompt you to think of dystopias and post-apocalyptic worlds, that kind of thing. And obviously there's loads of those around. But what I've actually chosen is the world in Songs for a New Day. Sorry, A Song for a New Day. This book is about a situation where it's got so bad in public life with mass shootings, and there's an epidemic that people are terrified of, and it's making people really ill. And there's, as I said, mass shootings, there's mass demonstrations, there's loads of unrest. And basically the government make public gatherings illegal, and they make live music illegal. Live music illegal. So there's some kind of parallels to what we've had recently, where the live music industry has been absolutely shattered by the COVID pandemic, and it's still not really recovered yet. There's still people being very cautious about going out, and live music is back on again, but it's still, same with theatre and even cinemas and those kind of things are definitely suffering still, because people are still very nervous. So if there was a society where that was sustained and it went on for ages, the idea of there being no live music just sounds like hell to me. So yeah, that's what I'm choosing for that one. Prompt number 2, Hellfire Club. The Hellfire Club is an unpopular and misunderstood group of nerds who are more than what they seem at first sight. So, name a book that more people would enjoy if only they gave it a chance. Okay, with this one, I'm going to a book that I studied at A-level in college, and it doesn't actually get talked about that much, weirdly. And I know that there are loads and loads of booktubers that talk about classics, and there's people who really love ancient history. Big shout out to Michael K. Vaughan. But I'm going to pick The Odyssey. So The Odyssey is a book that if you haven't tried it and you've only heard of it and you don't really know a lot about it, I personally think it's more accessible than the Iliad, because the Iliad is just a little drier, because this has got monsters in it for a start, and also it's because there are moments in the Iliad where it's like 3 pages, which is like a list of ships and stuff like that. So there is a difference, I think, in their tone, but they're all obviously set in the same period, and there is a consistency with them. But this has got Cyclops in it, and it's got other things in it that might make it a little less dry. But give it a chance if you haven't read it yet, and you've probably heard of it. It's the story of Odysseus and his travels around the world while Penelope's waiting at home. Really cool. So give that a go. And yeah, that's my choice for something that I imagine people might know about but think they should avoid because they're worried about it. So I've gone with that one. The third prompt is Dungeons and Dragons. Really, I do that. Hellfire Club is ready to take on Vecna and his minions in a climactic final battle of the Dungeon Master Eddie Munster's campaign. Name a book or a series you'd like to see adapted into a game. So it could be a computer game, or it could be a board game, or anything like So what I'm going for this time is a book that I did a special video about, or a series of books actually, but this is the first book, and this is the book that completely blew me away when I read it. I was really affected by it. The imagery and the tone of it was sort of stuck in my head for a few days. Really did affect me. And that was Simon Stålenhag's book, The Electric State. It's an amazing book. And if you had like a computer game with the kind of tone that was like really eerie and atmospheric, and it was quite a slow, still kind of thing, like maybe a puzzle thing, maybe, I'm not sure, but not like an action thing, but just something a little bit more eerie, that'd be really cool. And it's a beautiful book, but it's also really eerie and atmospheric. So there's a game, a black and white game, that you guys might know about called Limbo. And if it had the atmosphere of Limbo, that'd be quite cool. So Electric State, Simon Stålenhag. If you haven't read this, absolutely find a way of reading it, because it's so good. Okay, prompt number 4. Worlds apart. Eleven, Mike, Dustin, Hopper, and the rest of the gang are spread across the globe in the 4th season of Stranger Things. It's never a good idea to split the party, especially in a boss fight. Name a bookish group of unlikely heroes. Okay, so that's a big list of people that is in the prompt. And I've actually gone for just 2. So it's not a massive ensemble cast. And I tried to think of some ensemble cast books, but they were kind of obvious. And books I'd mentioned lots of times before. I didn't want to go on. I'm trying to, when I do a tag, I try and find books I haven't mentioned before as much as I can. And I have mentioned this before, but not in a tag, I don't think. So this is a pair of unlikely heroes in an unlikely situation. This is such a good book. I was thinking about it again when I was choosing it, and I think it's quite it's quite a light book in some ways, but it's also quite a beautiful, moving book, and it's so well written, and you really do feel for the characters. So it's Day Zero by C. Robert Cargill, and the 2 characters here is Ezra and Pounce. So Pounce is a nanny bot that's a tiger, but it's basically an AI that's been put in charge of looking after Ezra. But there's basically a robot apocalypse, and he's got to look after him away from home. He's got there on this kind of journey to try and get to safety, and it's just beautifully written. It's the prequel to Sea of Rust, so obviously most people would read Sea of Rust first because that was the first book, and then this came out a couple of years later. I don't know how it would work if you read this one first, but it's so good. I did love Sea of Rust as well, but they're 2 quite different books, I think. This is a little bit more emotive, I think, and Sea of Rust is like an action kind of bit of fun kind of thing. So yeah, that's my choice for unlikely heroes. Number 5, Argyle, who's a brilliant character in season 4, he recommends that you slap juicy pineapple on your pizza pie. He says, try before you deny. Name a book that you weren't sure you'd like, but you did once you tried it. Okay, so this is a funny one because I don't even remember why I read it. So All My Colours, and I seem to remember I was looking for something unusual. I thought, I'll go into the main fiction area and find something that I've never heard of and just read the backs and see if I can find something. And this is a really interesting book. So this is a book about a writer who keeps talking about this book, and it seems like no one's ever heard of it. It seems like the book doesn't exist, and it really bothers him. So he keeps trying to prove this by talking about it as much as possible, and there's no evidence that this book exists, but he knows it backwards, and he thinks, well, I might as well write it, because he's got writer's block himself, and the fact that he writes something that he thought existed, but then doesn't seem to exist in this strange reality he slipped into, that creates all these different consequences. It's a really interesting book. And it's funny. It is a funny book, but the actual main character is horrible. He's not very likable. He's a dick, but yeah, it's an interesting book, and it's a book that I just picked up randomly. So again, I don't really understand where I was coming from when I picked it, but I'm glad I did because it's a good book. All My Colours, David Quantick. Okay, question number 6, Vecna. Using telepathic abilities, Vecna is able to delve into one's mind, exposing their hidden guilt. Name a fictional book villain with cool supernatural abilities. All right, so this is a classic, an absolute classic I'm going with now. But I would say if you haven't read it, you should read it as soon as possible. But I think most of you watching this has probably read it. So it's John Wyndham's The Midwich Cuckoos. So the villains in this is a huge amount of children. So you may know the film Village of the Damned that came from this, and there was a recent adaptation as well. But these are all children that have telepathic abilities amongst themselves. They're kind of like one entity in a lot of ways, and they basically control a village. It's like an alien takeover kind of book. And what's really nice about this book, one of the things I love about this book, is all the way through reading it, you think, how are they going to get out of this? How is this village going to survive this takeover? Because it looks like whatever happens, there's no coming from, there's no let up from it. There's no answer to it all. And the ending is really good. So yeah, Midwich Cuckoos, the children in the village, cool supernatural abilities. Okay, so number 7, Running Up That Hill. Great reference to Kate. Running Up the Hill. Running Up the Hill plays non-stop on Max's Walkman during season 4. Great choice of song, people. And has risen up the charts since. Yes, she's had a whole load of extra royalties, I guess, and lots of attention, and lots of people are discovering her, which is great. And she's broken a few records, which is really good, thanks to Stranger Things. So that's really cool. And she likes the show herself. She did an interview where she said that she particularly likes it anyway, so she was just really pleased that they used it. So, name a book name a trope or a subgenre you'd like to see gain popularity. So, I'm going with ensemble casts. So I struggle to think of many books with an ensemble cast, and that's probably because I need to read more fantasy, but I think in general it's just a really cool thing when you have lots of different characters doing different things all towards the same plot, but they're in different places, interacting with different characters with their own little missions that all come together to help a final confrontation or whatever. I think that's a really nice trope. So ensemble casts, that's what I'm going with for that question. Question number 8. 4 chimes. Not everyone is destined to survive the denizens from the Upside Down. Name a fictional character whose death absolutely broke you. So, yeah, like I said in another tag video, I don't get physically upset when I read stuff. I don't cry, which is quite funny because I would cry at the drop of a hat normally. Must be something about hats. But as far as books go, it doesn't seem to do that. But I obviously find a lot of books really moving. And this book here, one that I read recently for the time travel video, Replay, I was really affected by the plot and the horrible consequences of this guy, the main guy, going back and losing an entire life that he'd lived. And he'd set up a family, and especially he has to grieve the loss of his daughter, even though she didn't die or anything, but he loses her because he goes back in time and has to live his life again. And in that way, his daughter might not exist in this next life. So it's a fantastic concept. It's a really fascinating part of the book. But it's also really, really, really moving. And as a parent, I was immediately struck by what that must feel like. It must be an absolute kick in the nuts. So, yeah, I thought that was a really powerful moment in the book. Really, really powerful moment in the book. I remember when I read that, it was just like, wow, that's devastating. So that's what I'm picking for that. So to tag people in the Stranger Things tag, I'm hoping he hasn't been tagged yet, but I'm going to tag Criminoli. And I'm sure he doesn't watch this show. But some of the questions are really interesting. And I'd like to know what Mark from Book Time with Elvis thinks of these questions. So anyway, yeah, I'll try Ollie in case he hasn't been tagged yet, and Mark from Book Time with Elvis. And thanks a lot for watching. Hope you got something out of those choices. They're all recommended books. They're great books. And yeah, I'm trying to pick different books than I've done before. Stranger Things is an incredible show. Have a look at my 10 reasons why I love Stranger Things if you're curious. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.
Paint me a picture